Hello, everyone. Hope you're going well today. So we are going to keep on the painting we did last time, focusing this time about more and more complex concepts. First, we talked about construction, value, structure, the relationship between each element. And now we are going to start talking about brushwork, giving dynamics in the way you apply your paint, bringing texture, also trying to find the little shifts into temperature that are really going to give consistency and quality to the overall color scheme, and of course using glazes to give depth and all these kind of things. So now we're really entering the inner mechanics of how to make your image switch from a good image to something really impactful. So let's jump on it. Thanks so much for being here with me today. And let's paint. Here is our guy. You remember him. Last time we were working on the sleeve and on the hand. And I was explaining you guys that you should always try to avoid very regular curves. Your direction always needs to be broken in some parts in order to give dynamism. What does this mean? It means that here, you see, I chose to put an angle. I didn't go simply like this. A lot of my students, when they send me their works for review and all these kind of things, on most of their work, they will usually be too repetitive. For instance, if you have a cliff, they will paint one cliff like this, another cliff like this, another cliff like this. You see what I mean? Just like this, while it should be having variations in order to bring some dynamism. And it's the same with all the elements which create long curves like this from the horse. You see, if I would do this, it would look so boring, just like a kid, like, "Urgh." But here I chose to have a few angles, not too much, because if you go like this, it's gonna look like a video game from Nintendo or something really back then. So what you want is to try to find the sweet spot, the moment where your curve can be broken into an angle, which will bring something dynamic, because everything in your drawing or your painting needs to have life. What I mean by this is that if you're painting a glove, if you're painting a saddle, or if you're painting a boots, each of these elements needs to be dynamic, needs to feel alive. The viewer needs to feel energy in it. It's not because it's something else than a human being or a horse that you have to paint it very mechanically and very in a very regular way. Okay, so each of your elements deserves your attention and your full focus for giving it some twist, some energy. It's a matter of balance, as everything in art. It's always something in accordance with something else, meaning that if you have a part that is very blocky, let's say this one, you see here you're having really an angle, then it can be nice to balance it with something smoother next to it. For instance, if you would have these leather, some things like this on the saddle, to have a curve here could balance well the fact that here you had a blocky shape. So if you put angles on all your curves, your drawing is gonna look too robotic, and if you put too many smoothness, it's gonna look like a marshmallow. So what you want is really balance. Painting, it's really about balancing what you're doing, and the further I go into my career, and the more complex my work become, the more I get aware of this. If you have a very massive, big shape in some part, like this painting from Trivium I did with this big nasty dragon, you want somewhere around to have more slim, let's say, elements, because if everything is as massive as your dragon, each element is going to cancel each other, meaning that in the end your painting will lose impact. You want to work with opposites creates dynamic, opposites creates synergy. That's the term. It can seem a little complex like this when you start, but if you think in a logical way, it's quite easy to apply. It basically means that when you have something, you need the opposite next to it. So if I have something warm, I need something cool. If you have something angular, you want something curvy next to it. If you have something massive, you need something small. And all this kind of thing, I think you got the point. And when you're gonna apply this, it's gonna change your work in a minute. The same if you have something crowded, you want this crowded thing to be next to something very empty. And if you have a scene which is very empty, you want a part that is really crowded. All this is basically made for grabbing the viewer's attention. What you want as a painter, as an artist, what you want is to lead the viewer or the listener somewhere. You want to take him by the hand and say, hey, come into my world, into my work, and I'm going to show you some cool stuff. You know, your art is like a door. It's a door to welcome the viewer or the listener, if you're a musician, inside yourself. So if you let your door open, but just go like, yeah, go wherever, you know, your viewer, the spectator doesn't know where to go, and he probably won't be too caught by your work because you don't lead him somewhere. So it's super important to have a plan. When you're working, you need a plan. You need to say, okay, I'm gonna do this here in the composition, this there, blah, 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 blah. So your viewer is taken by your hand and you make him move where you want in your painting. If you don't do this, the viewer is not gonna feel anything. You need to be conscious of what you're doing on your painting. You need to be able to give all your energy on some elements and to leave others. Some elements just needs to be on the second scene. It's like basically a painting is like a theater, okay? You have a leading role with the guy who's in the light. He's talking blah, da, 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 da. Okay? He needs to be in the light, he needs to be in front because he's speaking loud, he's the main character. People needs to see him first. Then you have the second character who's next to him like, oh, yeah. Oh, okay. He's also in the light, but he's taking less place. He's talking less loud, so people notice him second. Then you have the people from the background just to create the atmosphere. Like, let's say it's a scene on the market, then you have few people behind who are doing like, I don't know, they buy bread, they do something, and people notice them on the third row. And then you have, let's say, the background, the trees, the sky, or whatever. Okay. If you don't control what you're doing in painting, what is gonna happen is that the people in the background who are buying bread, for instance, are gonna be in the top light, and you're gonna hear them saying, yes, I like that bread. How much cost this bread? The person who's on the first plane, which is the main character, is not in the light, he's in the dark. And what he's saying, important information, is not plugged in. He's like, so as a spectator, you totally don't understand the information, and you see a guy buying bread talking loud, you see a tree, and you see some dark kind of silhouettes on the on like close to you. So the spectator is not gonna understand anything of your play. He's gonna go out like, what the hell was this? Okay, so when you're building a painting, you're basically a director. You're directing an image. And this, my friend, you have to print it way inside your head. If you're thinking as a director, it's gonna be a game changer for your images. Then you're gonna be thinking, okay, what I want to say, how I'm gonna say this, with which tools, by which means I'm gonna express this. Who's gonna be the major actor of my image? Who's gonna be the secondary role? Who's gonna be just in the background? And then the rhythm. Is it a play that is needing actions? Am I going to go for a vertical format, for instance? Because compositions that are vertical are active, there's action, it's something moving. Compositions that are really horizontal are slow. The viewer's eye is going like slowly, okay? So when you are painting, each decision has to be conscious. Okay, so let's go back to the painting. So I'm gonna keep on this part because it's a little messy and it needs to be refined. Being not good at combining color, honestly, it's not about being good or bad, it's about understanding. As soon as you understand the concept, you'll become instantly good. When I was a student, for instance, I was convinced that color is so complex that we will never, understand anything to it, etc., etc. But color has nothing magic. Color is just about mathematics. This next to this appears like that. What makes people confused about color is that it's very subjective in a way that your taste, your personal taste, has a lot to do with the color you're gonna choose. That's why people find it somehow a little mystical. like color it's something you have or you don't. No, it's just that because it's linked with your own sensitivity, it can sometimes give you the impression that you have it or you don't have it. But no, it's just about learning. And once you learned how it works, more or less, like temperature, saturation, value, all these kind of things, then you can tweak them to fit your personal taste. And that's why, for instance, let's say Picasso had his blue period, his pink period, whatever. He was able to tweak colors. And Picasso is modern, so you might feel that it doesn't make any sense if we're in a fine art class. But he was a great fine artist, like when he was a kid. And he actually said that it took him all his life to be able to paint like a kid again, because when he was a child, he was already painting like crazily good, very academical. So you see here, I'm just focusing on values and temperatures. This is in the light, this is in the shadow. So basically I'm asking which value is the shadow. Is it this dark or is it this dark? No, it's not. So you see, I'm trying to find the value. On the color wheel, I'm thinking vertically here. Where is the shadow? Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? It's not going to be here because these are the light parts. It's not going to be here because the shadow is not that black. So it's going to be somewhere around here. And then after I asked myself this, I'm going to ask which temperature it is. So is it warm or is it cooler? As you see, as it's a matter of relationship, a grayish worm will appear cold next to a warm part like the light. What I mean is that when people think about cool and warm, they think they need to go cool like blue like this and then put it. But this is way too blue, you see? So because I know I have a warm light and the parts that are lit by this warm source of light are going to be warm, I know that I only need to go towards the gray in the same hue and it's going to appear cooler. Here you see I'm putting a warm edge, and this is super important. At the edge of the form, it will usually be more saturated if you have the sphere, and the terminator is here, the edge between the really full shadow and this part and the light. Here you will have a saturation. I call it the saturation ring. Like this part between here and here is gonna be more saturated. See this part now from far, how really it looks. From close, we're just putting different temperature, focusing on the value, and then when you zoom out, it looks quite cool. So shadow is not warm enough when it will appear chalky. Anytime a color appears chalky, like chalk, it means the temperature is off. It's not saturated enough, probably not warm enough. That's how you can try to see if something is off or not. Look how many different tones and temps I have here, right? You see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a lot. It's these small shifts that when you zoom out gives you a consistent shadow with some bounce light inside and so on. But yet, if you squint the eyes, you see that it still looks flat and dark because I chose to compress and expose for the lights. What I mean is, if you expose for the lights, your shadows are gonna be flattened in one value. They're gonna be grouped and compressed, and your lights are gonna have value shifts. So if you're choosing to expose for the lights, it means that your shadows are going to be grouped and compressed into one single value, and your lights will have value shift. And on the way around, if you choose to expose for the shadows, it means that the light parts of your painting are going to be burnt and flattened up in one value, and the shadows will contain value shift. So here, there are shifts in color, in hue, etc. But the values are more or less the same. And if I zoom out, you see it still looks compressed. So I still respect the fact that I wanted to expose for the light. If I lose this hierarchy, if my shadow starts to be uncompressed and so on, then the painting is going off road and you feel something is wrong, but you don't know what. And it can basically be this wrong compression. When you feel something is not okay, always ask yourself, am I using the right value? Am I using the right temperature? Am I using the right color, the right saturation? And these things will really help you. See how am I using saturation at the edge? This helps giving a light effect. And here I'm painting digitally, but in a traditional manner. You see, I don't use any layers. I'm just flattening with each stroke. I'm adding, because it's important for me to paint just as I would do with oil paint. Here I'm having a bit of the sky reflecting, that's why it's a little bluish. And then I have the ground reflecting, which is why some parts are going to be more brown. Okay, let's focus now on this part down. There's something a little too cool here. I think it's this part. This part needs to be warmer because the blue here is just one reflection from the sky, but it shouldn't be everywhere. On the down part of the cape, you're gonna have some dirt, some dust, so you wanna warm up the temperature, see? Giving more credibility to what you're painting. Here the temperature is off. I can see it. It needs to be warmer. When something is wrong, you need to spot it, and I felt it's the temp directly. Painting is such a low medium. I really like it. I'm glad that we're practicing something that requires a lot of time, efforts, dedication, because it's a good training for our minds. We learn how to be really patient. And one day my mom told me like, Matthew, why don't you have patience? Because I was getting angry really fast. And I told her, Mom, all the day I'm staying in my studio, using my bar of patience till the end. Like when you stay all the day working like this, slowly, step by step, little by little, your patience is at some point it's just gone. So when you get out of your studio, you don't have any more patience. It's just zero. The bar is at the minimum. And that's the explanation I found because I'm quite a chill guy, but sometimes, yeah, I don't know why I get angry fast. And I think it's because I use all this patience on painting and I don't have more energy to put, into self-control and all these kind of things. I'm not squinting because it's stylish, huh? I'm squinting to see even better the relationships between what I'm doing, especially the values here. See, little by little, we start to feel the heaviness of the cape, that it's, sitting on the shoulders, that it's thick. And this is something important. You want to give weight to what you're painting. Like if you look at the guy sitting on his horse, you feel that he's sitting, especially this part with the leg. You feel that his leg is touching the horse, his butt is on the cellar, that he's really having some gravity. He's not like floating in the air. Always try to give weight. And oil paint is a great tool for this. You can really bring a lot of weight because you can build the volume slowly and really in a three-dimensional way, thanks to the fact that all paint is blending really well. See, I was searching the right temperature here. I was having a problem to find it. When you don't have the right temperature, never go further. Find it. Okay, my friend. Woo. We had a nice session painting, talking about art. Thank you so much for being here. I believe that some of you are here because of Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram and you want to see more of my work, that's definitely the place where you'll see what's going on. And have a great, 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 great evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you are.